So, I'm going to talk about alcohol and autism and why no one's talking about it on YouTube. I've done a lot of digging looking for people with autism that have substance abuse issues and alcohol issues and whatnot, and it's just really scarce on YouTube. So, I thought I'd share my story so we can get some dialogue going and maybe compare notes. Now, my story might be different than yours. Just because we're autistic doesn't mean we have the same patterns and what we've done with alcohol or addiction. So, a little disclaimer here. But I want to share my story because the similarities I have seen with people that talk about alcohol or addiction and autism on YouTube is that they drank because they had social anxiety. They did it to take the edge off. They did it to socialize more or better because we are very self conscious. I'm hyper aware of who I am, of how I look, how I talk, because people with autism are very in tune with how they articulate. Usually, um, they're above intelligent, above average intelligence. Um, as I screw up the term, um, so we're very aware of our surroundings, and a lot of us are highly sensitive. So there's another class out there called HSP, and you can look into that, highly sensitive people or person, and I fall into that category. So for me, growing up, I believe my dad had autism as well. So he was very controlling and strict, and our household was regimented. We had dinner at 6 p.m. exact every night. We had breakfast at 7:30 a.m. exact. Um, so there was routine. There was a tight routine. I had to go to bed at like 8 p.m. when I was 12. It was right after the Muppets. I still remember that. But when I was 2, I started rocking back and forth, and the swaying motion was soothing. Um, I had a rocking horse, and I used to rock it really hard, and I used to just look out the window. Um, so I was very introspective way back then. I mean, what 2-year old just stares out the window for hours rocking? But that was me. And later on in life, I like even today, I can rock for 14 hours and just look out the window. I do listen to music while I rock, but I my thoughts and me are my best friend. It's I do crave people in my life, but it's usually just one person at a time. I don't like being around more than 2 people in a room because I instantly become the quiet one. So back to childhood. Uh, it was a very straight household, very loving, um, very safe, small town, middle class. My parents were business owners. I never saw them work a job. Um, and I think I had dyslexia, and I had trouble in school. Um, but I loved the arts and very creative. I loved drawing and whatnot. But so with the alcohol, I was a late bloomer because I was very sheltered. My parents sheltered me very well. We moved up to a small town from Southern California when I was 5, so there was no crime or anything like that, and they sheltered what I watched. This is pre-internet, because I'm 50 now. I was born in 1972, so it was pre-internet. So we played video games and played hide and go seek and cops and robbers, and I rode my bicycle everywhere. So when I did finally discover alcohol, I was almost 17, and friends brought over a beer, and I was so scared of it, because I had no idea the power of it, what it would do. I thought one beer might make me drunk. My parents never taught me, you know, about beer or anything or how strong it was. I had no reference point. So I dumped out half the beer when my friends weren't looking. And then the next time I drank, it was, I think, a wine cooler, and I loved it. That's when I knew that this was it. This was the magic carpet ride. I've been waiting my whole life for it. When that alcohol hit my bloodstream, it was like a true romance. It was love at first sip. And genetically, it affected me more than a lot of people, because it was in my family. My parents didn't drink. It skipped them because they didn't want to be alcoholics like their parents. There was a lot of alcoholism in our family line, and some people have died early because of alcohol in my family. But when it hit me, it was off to the races. Um, and but it wasn't like I wasn't pickled with it yet. I wasn't used to the alcohol, so I'd always get these horrible hangovers, or I would get drunk really fast and puke everywhere. I couldn't control it, and I still was having trouble learning how to drink. Let's just say that. Um, so rock and roll and alcohol basically were my interests, and girls. And I couldn't graduate high school. I didn't even really care about it. I knew I wanted to be a rock and roll drummer. But I couldn't graduate, and my parents weren't going to send me to music school because I dropped out. So I was basically living on friends' floors when I was 18. My dad kicked me out. We weren't getting along. Um, and so I just lived with friends and stayed on their floors. I started experimenting with drugs, and I wanted to be an artist, a poet, or a rock and roll drummer. I love the arts, but what turned out to happen instead was I just started drinking more and more. And by the time I was 20, when I met an older woman who was basically my first girlfriend, she was 20 years older than me. So she was mature, because, autistic people like older, mature people usually, because we have kind of a innate wisdom. We seem a little more uh, self-aware at a younger age than our counterparts, the, I guess, neurotypical people. Um, so for me, older people they respected me. That's what I wanted. I wanted respect, because my friends in school did not respect me. My dad didn't respect me. My teachers didn't respect me. So my first girlfriend was 20 years older than me, and she turned me on to wine, art and wine. And I started writing poetry. In fact, she asked me to move in because I was writing poetry, and she really liked it. And that's my first girlfriend, and we lasted almost 5 years. But I was starting to drink every night, and I would black out. And there was times that she would have to tell me what I did, and it was always not good. Um, and then eventually, I took it too far, and she kicked me out. Um, and I was 24 and a half. So I went to Job Corps, and I was sober for 9 months. And when I got out, I was fine for a couple months, but I was back in the small town, and I started to drink. And then I met my neighbors, and this is where it gets interesting, because I wanted to be a writer, so I was writing, and writing on a small little typewriter, sipping tea and eating cinnamon toast at night, and just keeping to myself until I met my neighbors. And turns out that most of them were on Social Security disability, and they were a little crazy. But I loved that because I was a fan of the Beat Generation writers and Ken Kesey and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is my chance to write my own One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I'll just hang out with them and document what they do. So I would go over to their place, and they lived in a bunch of trailers in this crater in the earth. So we called it the hole. And so I would go over to the hole and hang out with them. And after a while, I just couldn't do it sober anymore. I was like, screw it, I'm going to drink with them. And then so I started drinking with them, and funny, crazy antics and screaming up at the sky, being wasted and having campfires. And one guy was from the Haight Ashbury, and he was a ex hobo, and he was deaf, so he would get drunk and he would be yelling because he couldn't hear himself, and it was so fun for a while. And then it slowly got worse and worse until I was drinking more than they were, and I would scare them when I was blacked out. Um, and they were like, Eric, you did some crazy stuff last night, and I just didn't remember it. So I'm getting really blacked out now. I'm getting really, I'm barely holding on to a job. By this time I'm flipping burgers for a living, and just not going anywhere with my life. But I still had big dreams to be a rock and roll drummer, but more like being a writer more, or traveling the world and being like Sting from the Police, wearing khakis with short hair and being worldly and having that dark tan. And gathering experiences of the world. But instead I just flipped burgers and got drunk at night and hung over in the morning. And then it got to the point where I couldn't handle the hangover anymore, and I was like, screw it, why not drink in the morning too? And so alcohol became the cure-all for everything. um, I've always gone all the way with whatever I do. So to me, it was still kind of like an experiment, this drinking thing, and how far we could push it. At least that's what my distorted, delusional mind thought was. It's artistic. I romanticized it. So let's take it all the way, because they say that uh, there's genius and madness, right? And I studied abnormal psychology and how schizophrenics created art, and I was like, if I take it a step further, maybe that will improve my art. That's like one of the biggest lies that addicts tell themselves, because really you don't do any art after a while, you just do drugs and alcohol. For me anyways. So I started drinking a lot, and then I got a job as a caregiver, believe it or not, caring for a man. I only had to be there 2 days a week. So, and lo and behold, I could drink while I was at his house because he had his own house. So I would just hang out with him and drink, and I would, he drank Coca Cola and I was drinking beer, and no one said anything. So I'm at this point. I stopped eating food because I didn't want it to ruin my buzz. I was on a budget. I could only get like 6 beers a day for a while, and so I was like, I need to make this stretch. And my stomach was getting swollen, inflamed. I would puke up food right away. So I'm like, I'm screwed. I'm gonna just drink. That will be my nutrients. I was my thinking was getting very distorted. I had a heart attack when I was 32, and I told myself that the alcohol thins my blood. I have to drink. So here I am. I already have a heart attack under my belt, couple DUIs, some jail time for public intoxication, and now I'm telling myself the alcohol will thin my blood. Um, so I drank for 4 more years. At this point, I'm drinking literally around the clock. It's like every 2 hours I have to wake up and drink beer to go back to sleep. If I don't, I start shaking. Every beer in the morning, I puked up onto the floor. My stomach was so irritated. And then when I was 36, I I was just so down in the dumps that one day this guy came over and to my girlfriend's house, saw me laying in bed. It was like 8 a.m. He must have been on speed all night, but he started making fun of me, and I couldn't do anything about it. And that at that point, I felt so worthless and defenseless that when he left, I left as well. Went back home uh, and drank 2 more beers, and then that was it. And since then, I had a couple 2 day relapses over the years, but I've been sober now for about 9 years. I didn't do it with AA or anything this time. I just self isolated. I'm sitting here right now all alone. I do have a girlfriend. We've been together for 11 years, but she gives me space, and I rock still. I'm going to quit that as well, and I'm going to start fasting. Because there's a lot of things I want to do um, to get more grounded and to become a whole man, and to get rid of these, to work on the childhood traumas, whatever that is, and my low self-esteem. So that's my story. I know I can add a lot of detail to it. I'll do more videos on this, but I just wanted to get this out there because there's only like there's like 3 videos on alcohol and autism. So I thought I'd share my story because obviously there's a need. If these Aspies are saying that they can't find anything on alcohol and autism, here's my story. But let me just say this with relapsing. I tried quitting alcohol probably 100 times over the years. I had varied levels of success. I went from 6 months of sobriety to 9 months to 12 months. I had a 20-month sobriety time. I had 1 year. I got the 1 year coin from AA. I was so proud of myself. I cried. But this time I just didn't go to AA. I just stayed home. We moved out of that small town, and I've been staying home for a long time. So I'm kind of past being lonely. I do crave your guys' comments. I really get excited when I get a comment under a video. You guys are basically my friends. So I work from home. I've been, doing affiliate marketing and stuff like that since 2014, successfully since 2016. It's kind of funny because I've done some network marketing, and as an introvert guy with social anxiety and autism, it's kind of funny that I even made any money in that, because network marketing, you kind of have to socialize. So I did it by just creating videos and blog posts, and got lucky with some articles that ranked in Google, and pretty soon I'm getting several orders a day for my MLM product. But that's another video. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like button and leave a comment, because it is lonely, especially right now. The world has gone mad, and I feel more isolated than ever, and mental health issues coming up because rocking 14 hours a day is getting it's hard on me. I've done it for a couple decades, but it gets hard sometimes. So love you guys. Talk to you soon.